Hello and welcome to News Central Now. I am Adebola Adegba. The top stories are this hour. A fire raises Idumota spare parts market in Lagos. Properties worth millions of naira destroyed. 22 bodies recovered from boat accidents in Niger State. Namibia opposition leader urges citizens to stand firm in the face of electoral irregularities. And details shortly. Let's begin by telling you that a fire outbreak at a spare parts market in the Idumota area of Lagos that has resulted in destructions of property worth millions of naira. The incident, which occurred on Friday night, was confirmed in a statement issued on Saturday by Olufemi Oke-Osanyitolu, the permanent secretary of the Lagos State Emergency Management Agency, LASEMA. Oke-Osanyitolu said a preliminary investigation showed that multiple buildings used as shops for sales of car spare parts were razed. He noted that the immediate or remote causes of the fire incident were yet to be ascertained. However, properties and goods worth hundreds of millions of naira were destroyed by the inferno. Oke-Osanyitolu added that no casualties were recorded at the incident scene and no injuries were sustained due to the incident. And now to update on the Niger State boat accident, where 22 people have been confirmed dead in the boat accident that occurred in Agay local government area of Niger State. Now, several persons were reported missing on Friday after a boat capsized along the Dambo Abuchi section of River Niger. This, according to Abdullahi Baba Ara, Director General of the Niger State Emergency Management Agency. Baba Ara said the boat, which was sailing from Kogi State to Kacha Market in Niger, had about 50 passengers, mostly women, on board. He added that 18 of the deceased passengers were from Kogi, while 4 were residents of Akwano community in Agay local government area. Now to the energy sector, where the Nigeria National Petroleum Company Limited, NNPCL, says the Port Harcourt Refinery Company has not yet commenced bulk sales or opened its purchase portal as essential processes are still being finalized. NNPCL's Chief Corporate Communications Officer, Olufemi Shoneye, disclosed this in a statement on Friday. He stated that the products the refinery currently sells originate from the Dangote refinery, and it includes applicable fees by the Nigerian Midstream and Downstream Petroleum Regulatory Authority. The company also advised the public to disregard any misleading information regarding pricing and notes that official announcement will be made if and when price reviews occur. This clarification comes amid public anticipation of the PHRC's full-scale operation as the company works to streamline its processes. Meanwhile, the National Civil Society Council of Nigeria has commended the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited for the commencement of operation at the long moribund Port Harcourt refinery. The executive director of the group made this known during a news conference in the nation's capital, Abuja, where he called on the management of the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited to work towards completing the repairs of the Warri and Kaduna refineries.
The Port Harcourt refinery impressive operational capacity of 70% is a testament to the tireless efforts and unwavering dedications of the NNPCL Limited. Additionally, the Council urged NNPCL Limited to work tirelessly towards the resumptions of productions at the Kaduna and Warri refinery, as this will further boost Nigeria refining capacity and reduce reliance on imported petroleum products.
Away from the energy sector, major opposition parties have faulted President Bola Tinubu's frequent travel abroad. According to them, the president is more interested in globe-trotting than addressing pressing issues of the country. But the presidency said a leader who sought to bring foreign investments couldn't afford to sit back when the harvest was out there. In the past 18 months in office, Tinubu and Vice President Kashim Shettima have embarked on 43 trips across 28 countries. The president is currently in France for a state visit. Commenting on the trips, the National Deputy Youth Leader of the PDP, Timothy Osadolo, described Tinubu as a globe-trotting president. Osadolo wondered why the funds spent on such trips could not be put to good use to salvage thousands of jobless Nigerian youths. And to talk about this, we're joined by social political analyst as well as former national coordinator for the Middle Belt Patriots, and that's Zari Yusuf. Good afternoon. Glad to have you join me on the news. Mr. Zari, can you hear me?
Thank you.
All right, great. Okay. Let me start by asking what your impression is regarding the president's travel, trips abroad so far. Do you think is one too many or justifiable? And do you think it aligns with Nigeria's fiscal responsibility?
First of all, there is nothing justifiable about it. And secondly, I wish, as was described by the youth leader of the PDP, it was just globetrotting. Unfortunately, it is not, because there is an underlying issue that is far more dangerous than basically the waste of taxpayers' money in flying around countries. And I think he has done so more than the number of months he has been in office. Now, let me put it this way, particularly focusing on his trip to France. It's well, to directly address your question, there is nothing that justifies the trips, frankly speaking, because to a large extent, when you make traveling around foreign countries a part of your major policy, to a large extent, a period of 3 months from when you commenced your rulership or leadership or whatsoever we would call it of a country, there should be some things that would have paid off to a large extent, but basically nothing is paying off. I think the best we could remember as far as international investment is concerned, a lot of multinationals are shutting down. Well, multinationals that basically we have not known to basically cheat in regards to their ties with the government. They are packing up and they are leaving. Small-scale industries are folding up. The masses are suffering, and basically there is nothing as far as his trips abroad is concerned that has positively impacted Nigerians in any way. I did mention earlier that I wish he was just flying around or globetrotting as it was described, but there is a far more dangerous dimension to it, especially with his frequent visits to France. Except memory is shallow or short, but if we would look at it well, we would very much remember there were particular reasons why the military in Mali, in Burkina Faso, in Niger sacked the governments there. Now, while we are upholding the notion of democracy, it's important to also look at why they would want their old colonial masters gone. Part of some of the things that were described as this visit, somebody tried to capture it and say he had this 10 points of very aggressive, agenda in his journey, in his trip to, the French president. There is security, there is power transition, there is agriculture, and a couple of other things. But particularly with the case of security, if you followed the trend in Niger, especially around their transition from the civilian to the military, you would understand that one of the core reasons why they had to sack the French was simply because of the compromises in their, security, especially when it comes to fighting Islamists and non-state actors. So exactly how that is going to play out in Nigeria, a country where you find state governors or possibly the federal government engaged more in pardoning Islamists rather than even catering to their victims, or the tens of thousands of refugees that are even outside the countries.
Okay,
it's just pathetic. And with regards, okay, go ahead.
I was going to chip in there, Mr. Yusuf. Some school of thought believe this visit overseas by the president is to position Nigeria in a positive light as well as generate, foreign investments for Nigeria. What do you make of that?
It is a lie. There is nothing about positioning Nigeria anywhere in the globe. I think it's the eagerness of puppet masters to basically appear as willing tools to ruthless colonialists to basically come in. And it's not exactly as if we are ignorant of the history of the dealings of African countries with foreign powers, France in particular, which I would describe as the most ruthless of all of the colonialists that we have had on the African continent. We know of their relationship with Burkina Faso. We know of their role in Mali. We understand how much the security of Niger could not, do it, was only worsening, and the military was basically had their hands tied behind their backs due to the French, and especially with regards to energy transition and exploration or exploitation of mineral resources. I think it's quite dangerous that a country that was colonized by these people over the decades have found a good reason to say, hey, you need to pack up and leave, because other than exploiting us, we don't have any business around here. As a matter of fact, you do so even at the expense of our security as a sovereign state. And then all of a sudden, an Anglophone country decides to package itself and presents itself as a willing slave to a ruthless slave master. It doesn't make any sense. Of course, propaganda is there. They could say whatever they want, but I don't see anything positive in that regard.
Mr. Yusuf, permit me to, differ in perspective with you. Are you saying there are no benefits whatsoever from all of these foreign trips, the president is embarking on? Okay, seems to last connection with, I guess.
Well, yes, sorry. Yeah, we haven't lost connection. I think my light went off.
All right, go ahead.
If I could go ahead like that, it's fine.
That's fine, go ahead.
All right. Okay, I do not think anything positive is coming out of it. Basically, whatever it is that is positive is like possibly I'd say 90% to the colonialist, 90% to those foreign powers that are being wooed, that we are willingly trying to open our doors to. And then however it affects Nigeria, it will not go beyond the state captors and basically their beneficiaries. But as far as the sovereignty of Nigeria or the economic development of Nigeria is concerned, I doubt if anything tangible is coming out of it. It won't. I know that very well.
Well, thank you so much for your insight on the news. Zariye Yusuf, social political analyst and former national coordinator for the Middle Belt Patriots. Many thanks indeed. We'll take a short break now. When we return, we have more news stories for you. Stay with us. Thank you for staying tuned. Former Vice President Atiku Abubakar recently hosted the 2023 Labour Party presidential candidate, Peter Obi, at his residence in Adamawa State. Atiku shared the news in a video posted on X.com, captioned, "It is breakfast time with my friend, #Peter Obi in the land of beauty." The video showed both leaders dining together, marking another meeting since the 2023 election. Earlier this year, Obi had visited former Jigawa State Governor Sule Lamido and former Senate President Bukola Saraki in Abuja, his first meetings with former allies after defecting from the PDP to LP in 2022. At the time, Obi's campaign spokesman, Yunusu Tanko, revealed that the discussion centered on rescuing Nigeria from the ruling APC. Now, this latest gathering highlights ongoing dialogue among Nigeria's political leaders. Some election stakeholders in Nigeria have expressed concerns over what they have described as a lack of accountability and weak internal democracy within political parties in the country. They say that the situation is responsible for the low representation of vulnerable groups in the nation's decision-making process. They raised these concerns in Abuja, the nation's capital, during the launch of a political party performance index, a tool designed to enhance Nigeria's democracy and improve the operations of political parties.
Marginalized groups, including women, young people, and persons with disabilities, continue to face significant barriers to meaningful participation. And that is despite party constitutions that profess inclusivity. Financial capacity and absence of accountability mechanisms have further eroded public trust.
We still have about 14 states without a single woman in the state assembly, and 22 states do have women, but mostly it's between just one, two, I think it's only Kwara and Ekiti State. Ekiti having 6 women, and then Kwara I think is about 5 women. When we look at the participation of women, like we categorized here, the vulnerable people, women, the youth, and the persons with disabilities, we find out that so far we do not have a single woman with disability in any parliament, both at the state and at the national level.
The PPPI is designed to incentivize political parties to adopt reforms aligned with democratic ideas by evaluating their performance across these pillars. The PPPI encourages parties to democratize their internal structure, improve transparency, and broaden their outreach to citizens.
The Yobe State Government and the Labour Union have agreed to implement the new national minimum wage of 70,000 naira effective December 2024. Now, this agreement was reached after extensive negotiation and is a significant win for workers in the state. Yobe State workers will not participate in the nationwide strike thanks to this agreement. The implementation committee, constituted by the state government, has ensured that workers' welfare is safeguarded. Yobe State NLC Chairman Mukhtar Tabutu has assured workers that they will not join the strike, and the agreement has been signed by top government officials and labor leaders. Now let's switch gears to judicial matters, where the Federal High Court in Abuja has granted bail to 109 foreign nationals from China, Malaysia, Indonesia, Vietnam, and the Philippines, Brazil, Myanmar, and Thailand, all arrested by the Nigeria police over allegations of being complicit in alleged cybercrime, hacking, fraudulent gambling activities, and others bordering on national security implications. Now, the trial judge, Justice Ekiriti Akpan, approved the bail conditions and adjourned the case to February the 27th, 2025 for trial. Our correspondent, Amadin Uyi, has details.
All attention now shifted to the arraignment of about 109 foreign nationals apprehended by the police at the Yobe district in Abuja for crimes bordering on advanced fee fraud, cybercrime, extortion, online gambling, and online hacking. The case, which was delayed because of the absence of an interpreter, finally commenced with a ruling on the bail application made by the trial judge. The counsel to the accused gave highlights of the bail conditions.
Well, one of the conditions is that they should get a 1 billion naira bond, then 5 shorties who deposit their passport, those that have landed property with a building, and then also that the shorties will deposit their own international passport. So I think it's adequate enough to ensure that they attend their trial, and to me it's fair in view of the circumstances of this case.
He described the conditions as not beyond the reach of his clients.
We are ready to meet up the condition of the bail so that they can come out, so that we can profile them and ensure that they will take proper brief to conduct the trial. It's a fair bail condition.
With the trial finally adjourned to February the 27th, interested parties in the case will be hoping that it is concluded speedily. In Abuja for News Central, I am Amadin Uyi.
The Kano Electricity Distribution Company, KEDCO, has commenced installing over 4,000 prepaid meters for Band A and B customers. And this is part of the federal government's Meter Acquisition Fund initiative to close the metering gap. The KEDCO has engaged approved vendors to provide and install the meters, which are free for beneficiaries. This move aims to ensure cost recovery and end estimated billing. Nigeria still faces a significant metering gap of about 7 million, but this initiative is a step towards addressing the issue. The KEDCO will determine the beneficiaries of this scheme, which is part of efforts to ensure the growth and sustainability of the power sector. Health experts in Nigeria have called for increased funding to combat the scourge of malaria, which continues to plague the continent. Now, they say that malaria remains one of Africa's deadliest threats, with the World Health Organization reporting that the continent accounted for 95% of global malaria cases and 97% of deaths in 2022. Our correspondent Joshua Imarai fills us in.
According to the World Health Organization report in 2022, Africa accounted for the highest cases of malaria and deaths affecting infants. The report, which says that the hardest hit countries with the most numbers of fatalities are Nigeria, the Democratic Republic of Congo, Uganda, and Mozambique, reveals that the continent has 95% of global malaria cases and 97% of deaths from the illness. These alarming statistics inspired one Nigerian, Amina Ejiofor, to join the fight against malaria after a traumatic experience with her son's battle with the disease.
It is important to note that nearly 80% of deaths in the African region were among children under the age of 5. The above statistics are grim and very scary. Having witnessed firsthand the devastating effects of malaria, both within my immediate family and in our communities, we are emboldened to use the platform of the foundation to contribute towards the control and mitigation of this terrible disease.
Experts were assuring of the safety and effectiveness of the newly approved malaria vaccine through their support behind the call by the World Health Organization's call for African nations to embrace the use of vaccine.
I would like to assure you that the vaccines are safe. We trust that our governments will not bring what isn't safe into the country. So for them to have accepted these vaccines, then that means that there's a large margin of safety associated with the vaccine. Suffice to say that getting the malaria vaccine published has been going on since 1960.
They are also calling for increased funding from the government and international organizations to support malaria control and mitigation efforts. In Abuja for News Central, I am Joshua Imarai.
Imo State Governor Hope Uzodinma says government can increase agricultural productivity through improved budgeting and funding of research in universities. Governor Uzodinma stated this at the Michael Okpara University of Agriculture, Umudike, Abia State, while presenting the convocation lecture on agriculture and national development in a diversified economy, a vision of renewed hope through town and gown entrepreneurial partnerships. He said the Nigerian academia should also seek collaboration with their foreign counterparts to fine-tune their researches and make them workable and guarantee food security in the country. The governor was represented by his Commissioner for Education, Professor Uzo Nwachukwu.
Examples of successful research-driven agricultural transformations. This is why we should also evaluate the impact of research on agricultural revolutions. Such evaluation ought to lead us to the need for an emphasis on the necessity of continuous innovation in agricultural practices and technologies. We do not sit and wait for the government to do everything. No. Besides, the private sector can also drive the implementation of these results to the benefit of everyone. That is, the researcher, the investor, and the consumer, and of course, the country, Nigeria.
Political leaders on the continent have been tasked to ensure good governance and accountability in a move to improve the well-being of youths across the continent. And this was as several youths from across several African states converged on Abuja to review agricultural policies and programs aimed at guaranteeing food security and jobs for young persons. Amadine Oyi tells us more.
It was a forum organized to demand good governance and better livelihoods for citizens, and also expected to herald inclusive food systems in the country. The event also provided an opportunity to discuss youth and women participation and involvement in the nation's agricultural policies and programs. The event, organized by the Action Aid Nigeria and several key partners, had in attendance smallholder women farmers, policymakers, and stakeholders in Nigeria's agricultural sector.
What we are doing here is constitutional. We are not here to, it's not a negative thing. We're not here to take over government by force. No. We are here, the same rights we have as citizens. That's the same right the president has as a citizen. And we are performing part of our responsibility as activists, as civil society, to create alternative, to demand for good governance. That is what we are doing here. That is the call to action that we are doing here.
Experts present say the forum is also aimed at putting the nation's political class on their toes, so that they can live up to their responsibilities.
The greatest threat to democracy is what? Is the politicians themselves. Is the politicians themselves that are set up to self-sabotage. That is the greatest threat to democracy that we see. And what we are doing here is to rescue the country from them, to rescue them from themselves.
Participants in attendance say it is a call to action for youths across the continent and express optimism of a change in fortunes for young persons, which can be effected through good governance.
Young persons should also know that it is their right to demand the political leaders or our leaders to account for whatever decision they make that affect us in terms of the health, in terms of agriculture, in terms of providing job security for us. We have to make sure we hold the leaders responsible. So whatever decision you are taking today, know that it is going to affect you in the long run.
I envision a change where Africans, especially our leaders, would consider, especially the young people of Africa, and also ensure that there is they actually observe the right to a life of dignity.
They say youths across the continent must collaborate and form a common front to demand for their rights from the continent's political class. In Abuja for News Central, I am Amadine Uyi.
Christian faith leaders in Nigeria have called for training and retraining of ministers so as to equip them with skills bordering on leadership and commitment to help transform the lives of citizens and upholding the dignity of the church. And this call was made during the maiden edition of the Young Ministers Conference organized by renowned Nigerian preacher and author David Oyedepo in the nation's capital, Abuja. Our correspondent Joshua Imarai sheds more light.
It was the maiden edition of the Young Ministers Conference which held in Nigeria's capital, Abuja. The conference, organized by renowned Nigerian pastor and teacher David Abioye, had in attendance young and old ministers across the country.
You can't grow without leaders, and we can't grow without people who have gone ahead of us. So we're all gathered to learn from our father Bishop David Abioye. He's had so many years of experience, and it is only logical, spiritual, to impart it into the younger one.
I believe that God has laid in the heart of his servant, Bishop David Abioye, like he said to us, to guide the young ministers. Being in ministry for over 3 decades, I believe by experience and by revelation, God had led him and God had taught him so many things that we, can now glean from. So I believe this is going to mean a lot for us who are young ministers and we're just coming from behind.
Also speaking, the founder of the Transforming Church, who was also present at the conference, expressed optimism that the conference aims at equipping young ministers with leadership traits so that they can impact the church positively.
There's been a lot of, reproach coming to the body of Christ lately, and pretty much so because some of our young ministers have not been properly trained. So this conference, hosted by the Honorable Bishop David Abioye, was designed to ensure that the next generation of ministers are properly trained. And one of the things you can be sure you will see from what we have seen today is that we're going to be seeing a new breed of ministers who are well behaved, who bring honor and glory to Christ and the church.
As the maiden edition of the Young Ministers Conference comes to an end, participants say it leaves behind a strong message of hope and transformation for the future of church in Nigeria. In Abuja for News Central, I am Joshua Imarai.
In a country where electricity remains a luxury for many, a beacon of hope is shining bright in Ogun State, Nigeria. A groundbreaking initiative that's empowering 50 women entrepreneurs with solar-powered smart retail kiosks is set to bridge the energy gap and transform lives. Our correspondent Igbalani Yomoni has the story.
Abuja, with a population of over 200,000, has a significant number of women, 52%, driving the local economy through small-scale trading. However, they face a major hurdle: limited access to electricity.
I tried Zobo business, but I had to pack it up because of the power supply. The power supply is not encouraging. For days, there won't be light, and the Zobo, if it's not cold, people won't buy.
Despite being connected to the national grid, Yobe State power generation is limited. According to the National Bureau of Statistics, the state produces only 300 megawatts daily, struggling to meet the needs of its 5 million residents. But there is hope on the horizon. The Neighbor's Shop, a digitized solar power smart kiosk pioneered by the Adiola Aziz Community Care Foundation and supported by the Bank of Industry.
What Neighbors will provide for them is the kiosk, the products, the freezer, the panel, the battery, and of course the tablets. So, and even going forward, it will be coming with a POS. Before you make sales, you have to check your customer ID, just like the supermarkets. You check your customer ID, be sure it's your ID, and start making sales. Everything that is in your kiosk is already in your system. If a customer wants to buy, they can check the price. Even if it is a new product, they just input, search the name of the items, and it will pop up. All the associates need to do is get to their kiosk. We train them before, give them 3 days, at least 3 days training.
It's a model that seeks to transform the informal sector into a formal one through digitization.
We are about empowerment on a sustainable basis. We've seen various kinds of empowerment for women, but have our women been lifted up? And everywhere you go to, everybody's selling these things out. But if we formalize it for them, right, and people also invest in it. Right now we're starting with Yobe State. Do you understand what I'm saying? Because, like I said, we've done 50. 50 doesn't even scratch the surface. We need to do more.
Solar kiosk is not only providing electricity, but also empowering the women of Ijebu and its environment.
We are not only reducing the environmental footprint of this project, but also ensuring that women in even the most remote areas can access consistent and affordable power to support their businesses.
Let us envision a future where every woman, regardless of her background, has access to opportunities that enable her to thrive.
And despite the fact that we look down on them like what they're doing is nothing, they're able to get their kids off to college. They're able to sustain their family.
Nigeria has made significant progress in increasing access to electricity, but there is still much to be done. For now, the women of Ijebu continue to thrive thanks to the solar kiosk.
Would you be considering going back to your Zobo business now?
Of course, I will, as long as it's part of what they supply to us at the Neighbor's Shop. So I'm glad to be back.
In Ijebu, Yobe State, for News Central, I am Igbalani Omani.
Coming up, Namibian opposition leader expresses concerns about election irregularities, calls for calm. Details shortly. Thank you for staying with us. Gabon's Constitutional Court has validated the referendum results with 91.64% of voters approving the new constitution. This clears the way for a presidential election in August 2025, as promised by the military rulers. The new constitution establishes a 7-year presidential term, a strong executive power, and a ban on dynastic transmission of power. The court's validation marks a significant step towards the return to civilian rule, and then 55 years of the Bongo family's rule. The military rulers have vowed to hand power back to civilians, with transitional president General Brice Oligui Nguema expressing interest in running for the president. The validation process was observed by local association and the United Nations with no major incidents reported.
La Cour proclame le référendum du 16 novembre 2024 sur le projet de loi portant constitution de la République gabonaise a donné les résultats globaux suivants. Inscrits 853 028. Votants 462 166. Suffrages exprimés 416 382. Taux de participation 54,18%. Suffrages obtenus. Pour le oui, 381 581 voix, soit 91,64%. Suffrages obtenus.
Namibia's opposition leader, Pandoleni Utula, has expressed concerns about election irregularities, but believes the process should be seen through before determining next steps. Logistical and technical issues have caused long queues and some voters to abandon the attempt to cast ballots. The election authority has extended voting until Saturday. Itula has called for calm and urged citizens to stand firm to ensure democratic right to choose their leaders. Opposition parties are in talks to find a common stance. While not ruling out protest marches, Itula emphasized caution and adherence to legal boundaries. He will inform the public about appropriate actions and timelines. The elections have been marred by controversy, with the ruling SWAPO party facing challenges from opposition parties.
I am not, and we are not saying that we approve of the process that has been instituted. Neither does it mean that we have actually cast away our rights at a later stage, if necessary, to consider questioning that process. But for the citizens, I would suggest that you carry out the process as the Electoral Commission of Namibia suggests. Many of you would be so frustrated as seeking other alternatives. I beg you to maintain a cool approach to these events, to remain calm as citizens. Namibia has never been known for anything else other than peaceful coexistence. In other jurisdictions, this situation would have been extremely explosive, and I really commend the youth of this nation that stood firmly in those queues.
Georgia's President Salome Zurabishvili expressed solidarity with the resistance movement, protesting the government's decision to delay EU membership talks. Thousands rallied against the ruling Georgian Dream Party secession, which contradicts the EU accession procedure. Zurabishvili, at odds with the ruling party, called for unity until Georgia achieves its goal, returning to its European path and securing new elections. The protests come after the government announced it would abort efforts to start EU accession negotiation until 2028, sparking opposition and public outcry.
შემიძლია დღეს ვთქვა, რომ წინააღმდეგობის მოძრაობა დაწყებული არის, დაწყებულია თქვენს მიერ, არავის მითითებით, არავის მოთხოვნით, სპონტანურად, შვიდობიანი და კონსტიტუციური წინააღმდეგობის მოძრაობა, რომლის მეც ვარ სოლიდარული, მთლიანად თქვენს გვერდით ვარ და ჩვენ ვართ ყველანი ერთად, სანამ საქართველო არ მიაღწევს თავის მიზანს, დაუბრუნდეს თავის ევროპულ გზას, მიაღწიოს ახალ არჩევნებს და მიაღწიოს იმას, რომ თავისი მომავალი იყოს ერთხელ და სამუდამოდ დაცული.
In business, the federal government has increased the single-digit loan access for small businesses to 5 million naira, aiming to drive inclusive economic growth. The Bank of Industry, BOI, will disburse 75 billion naira to micro, small and medium enterprises, MSMEs, at a 9% interest rate. Now, this initiative expects to create thousands of jobs and boost business operations. The government emphasized supporting MSMEs, recognizing them as the backbone of the Nigerian economy. Over 800,000 Nigerians have already benefited, with a focus on inclusivity of youths, women, and the physically challenged. The loan tenure is 3 years, and applicants can access the funds directly from BOI without any intermediaries. The governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria, Olayemi Kadoso, has revealed that the country lost more to foreign exchange subsidy than it spent on fuel subsidy. According to him, Nigeria lost around 6.2 trillion naira to harsh foreign exchange policies and subsidy in the year 2022, compared to 4.5 trillion naira that the country spent on fuel subsidy in the same year. And speaking at the 2024 Bankers' Dinner, Kadoso described foreign exchange subsidy as the real elephant in the room. He highlighted the CBN's recent efforts to address inefficiencies in Nigeria's FX market by unifying the country's multiple exchange rates. The reform, he noted, has eliminated market distortion and restored transparency, creating a more predictable environment for businesses in Nigeria. In the world of sports, Stellenbosch has strengthened their right-back option with the signing of Nigerian defender Enaya Kazie Godswill. His work permit has finally arrived after several months of waiting and training with the club, and means that he will be available from Sunday's Betway Premiership clash against Orlando Pirates at the Orlando Stadium. Godswill joins from Nigerian club Rivers United, who helped to a first-ever league title in the 2021-22 season. The 25-year-old also previously represented Nigeria at the 2022 African Nations Championship finals in Algeria. Godswill comes in as a replacement for Dean Van Rooyen, the former Stellenbosch skipper, who was sold to Orlando Pirates at the start of the season. The Lagos Seasiders edged out Sunshine Kings in a 24-21 victory. Now, both teams started strong, but the Seasiders capitalized on their chances, while the Kings missed key opportunities. Elsewhere in the men's category, the Benue Buffaloes dominated the Adamawa Warriors at 44-36. The Warriors, coming off a loss to Safely Shooters, struggled to find their footing. Meanwhile, Rima Strikers earned a walkover win against Confluence Stars. In the women's game, league leaders Safety Babes crushed Imo Grasshoppers 43-24, marking their third straight win. Rima Queens beat Delta Queens 31-26, while Defender Babes overcame Coas Babes at 35-30. South Africa's chances of reaching the World Test Championship final received a boost when they completed a 233 run over Sri Lanka on the fourth day of the first test at Kingsmead on Saturday. The result lifted South Africa to second place in the WTC table, which is calculated on average points earned. With their remaining 3 matches to be played at home, the second test against Sri Lanka followed by 2 against Pakistan, and South Africa are well placed to qualify for the final at Lord's in London next June if they keep winning. Certain a massive 516 runs to win, Sri Lanka were bowled out for 282. The second test starts at Gyokiba on Thursday. And that's all on the news. Let's take a look again at some of the major stories. Fire has razed Idumota spare parts market in Lagos, and properties worth millions of naira destroyed. 22 bodies have been recovered from boat accidents in Niger State. We also told you that Namibia opposition leader has urged citizens to stand firm in the face of electoral irregularities. You can watch Central live on DSTV channel 422, Star Times channel 274, Avo TV and YouTube. Many thanks for watching. I am Adibola Adeduba.